Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Heat Press for Profit podcast. Thank you for your patience. We just had a little bit of technical difficulties with the sound and whatnot. So, welcome everybody to our podcast episode, 115. So, I am Liz with Stalls, and I am so excited. I have been waiting for this podcast specifically because it's going to be a good one. But before we get started, I do want to say, where are you tuning in from? We are live through Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. So tell us where you're tuning in from. I'm here cozied up in our studio at Transfer Express here in Mentor, Ohio. And so, let me know. What are your plans for Thanksgiving for those who celebrate? Are we ready for a little bit of a break? Are we ready for some R&R, or are we heat printing through the holiday to get those orders in? So this podcast, we are your go-to resource for all things heat printing, all things decoration, all the things where we just have such a friendly and casual conversation. Sometimes we might debate on which decoration method is preferred, but that's okay. So, hello. Hi, Angie. You're tuning in from Brooklyn, New York. How lovely. Thank you so much for joining us live. So before we get started, I have two special guests with me. And my first guest I'm going to bring is Mike with Stalls. And hi, Mike.
What's going on, Liz? How are you?
I'm good. How have you been since Printing United when I saw you in Orlando a few weeks ago?
Been doing well. Can't complain. Finally caught up, I think, from the 5, 6 days we were away.
Are you playing your piano in the background there?
Not yet, but maybe I'll play us a tune before we head off.
That AI background looks so good.
Right? I wish this was my house.
Well, thank you so much for being willing to be on this podcast. And I really think with your industry knowledge, like, what are you, 15, 20 years?
It'll be 22 next May.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So let's kind of tell the viewer, tell them a little bit about, who you are and, what your role is at Stalls.
All right. Well, thanks. Yeah, well, as Liz said, I'm Mike Koval. I've been here with Group Stall for going on 22 years next May. Uh, I've worn so many hats within the company and seen a lot of very different things from my early career being hired here as a web developer, then got into being a roll-in technician where I'd go on site and install roll-in wide format printing equipment, for folks. Started getting to trade shows and talking to folks about the printing industry and heat printing and all that good stuff. And, getting to trade shows, started talking to customers and, kind of to hone my craft. I didn't even expect to be a salesperson, but, here we are today as a salesperson. So I've been in direct sales with both Stalls, Transfer Express throughout my career. And currently my role, I work with Hotronics, which is our manufacturing hub of Group Stall. And Hotronics, there's we obviously manufacture the heat press equipment. And one of the products that we're going to be talking about today, I'm not going to take Liz's thunder, manufactured here at Hotronics, and working with the various Hotronics distributors that are throughout the country.
Yes. And so before bringing on our next guest, I really wanted to kind of just talk a little bit about screen printing in general. Now,
Mhm.
I was raised in screen printed transfers, so not the whole screen printing traditional setup.
Mhm.
8 years ago, I was hired on by Transfer Express, learning about, the screen printed transfers and equipment. So that's where my knowledge lies. But even 8 years ago, it's changed. The technology, the inks, the process. Now, Mike, this is where I want to get your expertise, for the last 20 plus years, because screen printing sometimes takes a back seat. But I am a huge advocate for screen printing, traditional, or if you're using heat transfers, I support both. So with that being said, what what are the advancements? Are people like saying no to screen printing jobs, or is it's a timeless technique, right? So,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts?
Well, screen printing, it's been rooted in the decorated apparel industry for ages, right? And that's all. I heard about early on in my industry. Everybody was a screen printer, right? And a lot of times in my early career at trade shows and things, screen printers often weren't a very big fan of heat printing, right?
Hmm.
So it's like, oh, the transfers are just going to fall off. They're going to only last about 10 washes. They're thick, they're patchy, all the things that we've heard from screen printers throughout the years. But and I think we are at the perfect time for what we're going to be talking about. And screen printing is never going away. Screen printing is always going to be here. Embroidery is always going to be here. Heat printing is always going to be here. Sure, people like, oh, well, these are competing decorating methods. Well, they're not really competing decorating methods, right? They're complementing decorating methods. So each decoration method has its place, whether you're traditionally screen printing, utilizing heat transfers, embroidery, sublimation. We all know those different techniques that are out there, but they all go hand in hand together because there's some things that a screen print can't do. There's some things that a digital transfer can't do, but like where we are right now in the industry, with the shift to print on demand, that gave screen printers a big challenge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because typically they're decorating 100-piece runs, 500-piece runs, 2,000-piece runs of the same design over and over, right? And that's kind of where screen printing thrives. But with the shift in the industry these days to a more print on demand, where screen printers are still getting those big bulk orders, but they're so segmented. They might have 50 pieces of this, 25 pieces of this, 3 or 4 different pieces of artwork, some that might have, 10 colors, gradients, fades, photo quality
Mm.
images, which is very, very, very challenging for a screen printer to do. And that's kind of where heat printing comes into play to complement that. So sure, if that screen printer has 100-piece, 200 pieces of the same exact logo, 1, 2, 3 colors, yeah, they could burn those screens, get them loaded onto the press, run that job, lickety split, right?
Yep.
But then when customers are introducing these, full color images or smaller quantity runs, it's very difficult for them to do cost effectively. And, some things could be very expensive to the customer where they don't want to pay those types of prices for certain things, so that's where kind of everything all comes into play, whether it's transfers, whether it's screen printing, so.
Absolutely. So, without further ado, I am so honored and privileged to have my next guest. I had the opportunity to meet him for the first time a few weeks ago at Printing United in Orlando trade show, where I got to get a little bit of the Cliff's Notes of this innovation. So, I am bringing on to the stage. Hi, Jeff.
How you doing?
Look at your setup. That looks so good. You got the fancy mic and everything.
Yeah, I used to start my podcast. I used to come on with the Stampinator.
You guys, everybody, Jeff is a big nerd. So you're going to fit right on in. Jeff, welcome to the Heat Press for Profit podcast. How have you been?
Good. How about yourself?
I've been good. So, I'm just going to jump right into this because when I met you, we had just a brief moment introduction. I got to see the Stampinator in person. You did give me some information, but how busy it was in our booth. Everyone came up asking questions. They were so intrigued, like, what is this piece of equipment? What does it do? So I'm so glad you're here. And can you kind of give a brief, who you are, what you do for our audience?
Yeah. So my name's Jeff. I created Stampinator. I've been printing T-shirts since I was maybe 19 years old. Always had a fascination with art. I was an artist. I can draw, and it kind of led me into the world of T-shirts. So I started that and started my business in my early 20s. And from there, I've continued my career as a screen printer. And that led me into the Stampinator. So
So
go ahead.
My question, and I think we discussed this back at the trade show, the Stampinator. Now, I keep seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the Terminator every time. So please tell us, how did you come up with that name for that product?
Yeah, so that name, when I first had the idea for whatever I was creating at that point, um, one day I came home from work and my daughter's like, "Hey, Dad, all the boys in school are talking about this movie, The Terminator." And as soon as she said that, I was like, "The Stampinator is born." So we sat down and we watched The Terminator that night, and I was excited about the whole fact that I was able to come up with the concept, the idea, the name, The Stampinator. And it's funny because a lot of people are always like, "Hey, we like when you always say like The Stampinator." So I thought it was a great name for the product because I developed it to do inline transfers, and we're stamping on press and matting fibers, but matting fibers in the apparel of screen print and matting stamping your underbase came a lot later, like maybe a year or two later, because I developed it to do transfers because we were doing so many transfers for we were doing backpacks for Under Armour and a lot of teams where we did a two color print with a transfer number, a vinyl number, or we were ordering Transfer Express, the screen print numbers. So when I looked at it, I was like, we have to develop something that's going to make it easier for us. So we have a one-step process instead of a two-step process. We're printing and then we're going to the heat press room and applying the number or the name. So that's how the Stampinator was born, created.
Now, this brings me to a point because before we brought Jeff on, Mike and I were kind of talking about maybe some problem solving with screen printing. Now, Mike, you were in sales for a long time. You spoke to it. I think you're up to like thousands of customers at this point. Now, were there any type of challenges or pain points that screen printers had in the past where Jeff's innovation is kind of aiding any of those pain points? What do you think?
Well, a lot of the biggest pain points, obviously, like I was mentioning earlier, if there's multiple colors, right? Or if there's customization to things. So specific names, specific numbers, which, yes, you could do those with screen printing, but it's not very cost effective to do mass customization with screen printing. So that's kind of where heat printing lives. And I think another big challenge with screen printers is, odd shaped items like backpacks and things like that, where heat printing is very conducive to that, to the different types of attachments that heat presses have, so those were some of the bigger challenges that screen printers would always talk about. Well, how am I going to do this very cost effectively, right? And it took them a while, but just like Jeff, screen printers are finally embracing heat transfers to solve some of those pain points that they're having.
And Jeff, is that one of the pain points? Like, can you kind of talk through maybe other challenges that screen or yourself because you were raised in the industry basically? So, can you speak a little bit more about those challenges?
Yeah, so like kind of touching base what Mike just said. When I look at transfers, screen printers, when I developed the Stampinator, like, whoa, we're not talking transfers. We're screen printers. Those things fall off your shirt when it's just, there's no way we're going to do a transfer. So I went to Fort Worth. We were at the trade show. It was my first trade show. I had a little 10 by 10 booth. We had a projection. I made a lot of videos showing what the Stampinator does, what we offer, how it works. And people were coming by. They were blown away. Like, wow, this is amazing. But who wants transfers? Nobody does transfers. And when I realized at that point, it was something that screen printers weren't selling. Transfers it was a small thing within their business. Maybe a transfer was going onto a hat. But when it came to apparel, they had the equipment to print. That's what they wanted to do. So I had met Ryan Moore. They were presenting the Rock Press at the Ryanette booth, and we had a crowd the entire time. And he came over and he was like, "Hey, does this thing mat down fibers?" And I was like, "Sure." So We threw it on the press, and that was my connection with Rock and Ryan. From there, we just continued to work together, developing the stamp to work on the rock press and every press on the market.
You know what? I was at that show. I was at that trade show, and I remember we were in, it wasn't in the main floor. We were like in this back room, and there was just people everywhere. And I remember Rock being there, and that's when, I saw the Stampinator for the first time, and I'm like, what is this piece of equipment? Apologies because until I met you in printing at Printing United, I really didn't see until I saw the video and you walked me through the process because I thought you just I'm laughing because it's little I knew. I thought
Yeah,
you like
absolutely.
entered the sheets of paper like a printer, and you all don't, yeah, he was probably laughing on the inside like she does not know. So, thank you for the time. So, I kind of want to get into like how tell us how it works and the technology behind it. I do have a video that Scotty can put in the chat of it being used at Rock. So
Yeah, go
will
ahead.
you tell us?
Yeah, play the video and we can talk about it.
Oh boy. Oh man. I don't know if I played a video here yet. Oh boy. Let's see if I know how to do this. Hey, Scotty, do you know how to do this? Scotty's our person behind the curtain answering questions. How do I pull in a video?
Well, while you're doing that, I can move
Yes,
forward. We can talk
thank
about it.
you.
So the Stampinator, it works on every press on the market, whether you have a Rock, M&R, Anatol, Workhorse, MHM, and some other presses. There's TOS. So if you have a TOS, it works as well. The stamp inserts into your print head, and when your carousel indexes and the table raises up, that's where the contact's made with the Stampinator. The Stampinator is a patent product. We have 4 compression springs that help balance it, and it's really self-leveling to the pallet. So it hits the entire pallet when it's stamped. So no matter how large your image is, as long as it's 16 by 20, we're going to cure, stamp your underbase, replace your flash, and it gives you a super smooth surface to print on top of. It's like printing on paper. The end result gives you a super soft hand to your garment, but it also allows you to use a lower mesh when you're printing, like a 230 for your underbase, because it does such a great job on matting down the fibers that when you print on top, you follow it with 230s or 305 mesh, you're using less ink and you have a really nice hand to your print, as well as you're not losing, if you're printing with halftones, getting pitting or fallout. You have a perfect halftone every single time you print. It does such a great job that when you're printing halftones, if you don't wash the halftones out 100%, you'll be able to see that within your print design. One of the great things about the stamp, what I love most about it is it really saves time on press when you're running a job. And I say that because of the fact that it mats everything down where you're not stopping and trying to figure out what's going on with the image. And we had a lot of problems. A lot of screen printers had those problems because we're trying to adjust the squeegee angle, more flood, to compensate for the turbulation of the fibers coming up through the garment as we're printing.
And I'm still trying to pull up the video, how to share it. So, viewers, I apologize. We did put the link in the chats that you can click on, and it does explain what the process is. So, while I'm still figuring that out,
Well,
for
look,
the
if real quick, if you want to learn more about the Stampinator, you can go to YouTube You can
Yes.
pull up videos. You can
Yes,
go to Stampinator
100%.
480 or Stampinator and check out all the videos that we have. We have a lot of new posts with the Stalls Hotronic Stampinator 480 for you to view, and they're fantastic.
Are you on social as well, like TikTok or Instagram?
Yeah, we're at Stampinator 480. We're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Uh, you can pretty much find us on every platform out there, as well as YouTube.
And also to the viewer, if you have any questions on whether it's screen printing or the Stampinator, drop them in the chat. You know, this is live, so if there's a question that you can think of, please, we have Mike and Jeff here to answer these questions. Um, I have it on my list to learn how to share a video. So that's my homework for after this. Now, are there any, I'm curious, are there any advancements like to the Stampinator? Are, you know, is anything in the future that, or can you share anything?
Yeah, well, I want to go back to the Stampinator and just talk
Okay.
about how we utilize the stamp with converting your automatic into an inline heat press.
Yes.
So, for all the screen printers that are out there, and whether you're a manual screen printer or an automatic, we have a stamp for both. Um, you can convert your automatic with our top cover pallets, which is going to allow you to produce anywhere from 300 to 480 transfers an hour. So the
Wow.
Stampinator is the Stampinator 480 for a reason. The first time we ran the stamp, we were running 480 transfers per hour. So
Ooh,
we're stamping anywhere between 6 and 8 seconds, depending on the transfer.
that's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, so I want a little bit with the technology. Now, your partnership with Rock, how has that been?
It's been fantastic. You know, Ryan is he's a super smart guy. I mean, he's the marketing genius of screen printing. I feel like, and working with them, you know, they believed in the product and they backed it. So, with that said, you know, I couldn't have asked for anyone better to work with the Stampinator and the automatic press. I thought when I as a screen printer developing a product, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get out there. I'm going to sell a ton of them. And I had a lot of people out there. Oh, just a glorified screen printer trying to develop a product to get into the marketplace. Well, that wasn't the case. I mean, I developed something for myself, and it worked so well that it was time to take it to market. And that was my first trade show at Fort Worth. So when I look at the Stampinator, I am still a screen printer. And my product, it works. Does it work for everyone? Maybe not. You know, once you learn how to use it, it'll work for you. But what I know with the screen printer, because again, I am a screen printer, we'll buy a product and we don't read the directions. There's no instructions that go into our mind. We just think about putting it on press or putting that product into our shop and figuring it out, right? And hoping it's going to work for the best. I always say, from one screen printer to another, how many times has a sales guy come into your shop and said, hey, I got a product that's going to change your life. And you buy it and it becomes a paperweight or a desk in your shop. And we've all been there. I bought equipment. I bought things that I thought was going to save, how we're make things easier for what we're doing. And it didn't help. Right. So it becomes a paperweight or that desk piece that you're putting supplies or whatever on. And yeah, so it's been great.
So you mentioned we don't want it to be a paperweight. So what are your recommendations for the viewer that is considering it? Like, what's the criteria? Like, is there a checklist? Like, okay, this is why I need it. This is, we don't want it to be go in the garbage pile. We want our customer to be able to use it. So what's the criteria?
Yeah. So when I look at it, I always ask the customer, when somebody calls and says, "Hey, I'm interested in the Stampinator." Fantastic. My question is, what are you trying to achieve? And I just listen to them. It's, well, we're looking to mat fibers, or we're looking to convert our press into an inline heat press. Fantastic. And then we go into, if it's matting fibers, what types of ink are you using? Are you using a low cure, a standard cure? There's all these different variables that factor in on how the stamp's going to perform on press. It's all temperature based. It's time, how long you're stamping for when you're printing a t-shirt. All these things factor in. And then you have shops that kind of mix and match inks. And then when you look at that, it's even more of a challenge because there might be an ink that's the viscosity is a little bit thicker than some of the other ones that are out on the market. So, there's definitely different variables that factor in with using the stamp. And one thing I tell everyone, when you're printing with the Stampinator, a 156 mesh or a 230 mesh works perfect for the stamp. We're not trying to build the ink up because the stamp directly hits the garment with the wet ink. So it's touching and matting down the fibers. And the one question I do get, does it spread the ink out from the pressure? And it does not. You don't get any, there's no push out, and you're not going to have any registration issues. When I look at products that mount to your print head, the flood bar and the squeegee, as that rolls over the garment, it tends to pull your garment out of registration. When your pallets heat up and you're using a spray adhesive like a glue-based product, and it kind of gels, right? So the t-shirt or the sweatshirt wants to pull. The stamp is direct heat that comes down, so you're not going to lose registration. The other great feature about the stamp is we could put a thermal conductive rubber between the Teflon and the heating element. So when you're printing a t-shirt that has a pocket or a V-neck, or let's say you can print a Gildan shirt on your adult pallets, and you have the seams that come up from the shoulders and the sleeves onto the pallet, you can still print and stamp it with our rubber that goes between. That compensates for all the seams and mats down the fibers and still gives you a super smooth surface to print on. So we figured out like all the solutions on press with the stamp on how you can utilize it and make it work in your shop. One of the big challenges in shops is finding a team that accepts change. A lot of people don't like change. So I always pitch, if you want to buy a stamp, because I know if you have 1 to 6 or 12 or 20 automatics, if you buy one stamp and you're going to turn around and buy one for every press. And why I'd rather sell you one is I want you to get acclimated to it. I want you to understand how it works and then implement, into your shop as you move forward. It works better. I had a shop in Canada. We installed like 12 stamps, and I was up there working with them probably 6 times throughout the year, and just getting the printer who wasn't comfortable with it, with using the stamp, to just being relaxed and understanding like, hey, it works. And they were running all M&R presses they had sportsmen's gauntlets and cobras. And I'll tell you, Jesse from Avid, he's fantastic. And he's been a really great supporter of the Stampinator on M&R equipment.
So a question came through, and technical difficulties. I'm not sure how to share this video, but Carl, he would love to see a demonstration. Now, Jeff, is there a team, or does anybody do like, a demo? Is there a call a customer can set up? How does that work?
Yeah, so you can go to stampinator.com and click on demo, schedule a demo. We do demos on Wednesdays and Fridays.
Oh, fantastic.
And, I know a lot of screen printers like Fridays, depending on how you cycle in your shop. Some people come in, break it right out of the gate, and you're cranking Monday morning so you can wind down on Thursday and Friday. Some people come in on Monday and just kind of relax, and then they're jam packed all the way up till Friday. So, but if it doesn't work for you, you can always email us under support, and we'll schedule a demo. If a weekend works better for you, whatever works for you, we want to accommodate so we can have your full attention and give you a full demo on matting fibers using the stamp to stamp, flash your underbase, as well as providing the transferability on press with our top cover pallets.
And I think,
So,
if I could add
yes,
something here,
please,
so
yes.
it's always the cheesy statement. You have to see it to believe it, right? But I think Stampinator is truly a piece of equipment and product out there that really, once you see how it's going to be able to benefit a screen printer, like Jeff had mentioned, saving a lot of headaches there with fibrillation, multiple passes on your underbase, stuff like that. And then when you feel that finished product, it is really a night and day difference when you see, hey, this was just a standard flash cure, versus a stamp. I mean, you're truly going to see that difference. And then two, not to mention just the versatility and things that it's going to open up to those traditional screen printers when it comes into heat printing. Obviously we know where DTF is these days. It's all the rage here in the industry, and that's all everybody talks about. So. And then screen printers, they're using DTF, just as much as, the standard heat printer, right? And all that. And then two, specialty finishes are always tough to get into with screen printing. Your glitters, your reflectives, your foils, and things like that. Having that stamp on press is going to allow them to incorporate screen printing along with those specialized finishes too.
Absolutely. And I think Jeff has something he wants to showcase. I see you grabbing some goodies.
Yeah, so we did almost maybe back in May, we were at Last Call for Plastisol podcast guys. They did a print playbook where it brought in a lot of vendors, uh, leaders within the industry, speakers, and things like that. But we also did some on press things. I am pretty efficient in Illustrator and Photoshop, and I do a lot of color separations, and I teach people how to do color separations. But one of the things that we did was we did a color separations on a 4-color process. And one of my favorite process inks is the Monarch series. What was great about it, we were running a small and a tall press. And on that press, I think they had 2 flashes. We took 1 flash off. They have Stampinators. They've been running Stampinators for about 4 years. We took down the Stahl's Hotronic stamp, did a full demo display. This was our 4-color process design that we did. It was print homie, so I did a design that was between Snoop Dogg and Willie Nelson. And 4-color process.
Wow.
I showed everyone how to do it. It took 10 minutes to do the color separations. We did our underbase, and we did our CMYK right on top. So it was just underbase, yellow, cyan, and magenta. What I was doing was showing a company or screen print shops that if you have a small press, you can do this type of printing on a small press. Now, we stamped our base, we cycled the press twice, and we stamped the base. We printed and stamped the base again. We were able to do that. We were using Monarch's Yeti White. And with the Yeti White, we ran a 230 base, so we weren't laying down much ink on the first print. So we printed the first one with the 230. We stamped it. We matted fibers. It was like printing on paper. We came around the second time. We printed the base. We stamp flashed it. And then we had 1 cool down, and we printed our yellow, magenta, and cyan. And this was the end result.
That looks sick.
It is.
Wow.
Pretty sick. It feels really good. So now I have a cover over it, but the hand's amazing.
And you had some samples at Printing United, if I'm correct, and it's legit. It's legit.
Yeah, we had at Print United, we had the Stampinator design that I did. It was just a kind of like a fun graffiti type print. We printed the underbase, we stamped it, and then we printed the underbase, and it was top and bottom. It showed the difference. So when you looked at it, when people were, when we had screen printers coming into the booth, I'd ask, which one, what print looks the best? And right away, everybody pointed right to the one that was stamped. Like
Wow.
hands down, they were blown away. So one of the great things about being at Print United this year, hats off to Print United. They put on a phenomenal show. It was one of the best shows I think I've been to in the last 3 years. Like it was new faces, just a whole different vibe. It was fantastic. But it brought in, there was a lot of printers there. I don't know if it was because it was in Orlando, but whatever they did, it worked.
I
Let's hope it
agree. It
carries
was.
to Long Beach, right?
Yes.
Will you be, well, really quick, not to go off script here, but what's the next couple shows you'll be attending for the viewer so they can come and say hi?
Yeah, so we'll be at Long Beach. I think with the decline in shows, we're just going to do like 3 Texas and then Print United again. That's about it. But one thing that we're doing is it's going to be February. I think the second week in February we offer a class, so you can come to Stampinator facility. We'll set up. We do a seminar on art, color separations. We take that same design that we did. We produce the screens. We go to press. We show you how to print with the stamp. We show you how to print with our manual Stampinator on a manual press. And then we have our other press that's set up doing inline transfers. But one thing, for me as a screen printer, I had never had, I didn't have the advantage that screen printers have today. When I was a printer and I started out, screen print shops did not want to share any of their technology and what their capabilities were with other
Wow.
printers. For me, I want to work and help everyone, right? I don't care if you're working it and you're printing in your garage or you're a big shop. I've been doing a little bit of consulting, well, a lot, and I don't charge. I always say if you buy a Stampinator, you can call me anytime you want, whether it's a Stampinator question, art question, or on press, whatever it is.
Or what's
I
for
just
dinner?
Yeah. What sushi? So for me, I want to see people achieve their goal of starting a business, because when I started it was hard. It's harder today, I feel like, because there's more printers that are out
Mhm.
there. And I've had the thrill of printing for over 30 years,
Wow.
and it's been good. It's my I was able to put my kids through private school. My oldest is graduating college this year. I have 2 of my daughters are going to be in high school together for 1 year. My oldest is going to be a senior next year, and my youngest is going to be a freshman. But this business has allowed me to do those things, and you know, always being the MacGyver and tinkering and working on things and trying to be creative and building things. I was fortunate that it was able to create the Stampinator. And I feel like, I have a product that everyone should have in their shop, because it's going to help you just make your prints better. And that's our tagline: make your prints better.
And I think the industry can appreciate what you're saying because I've been in it only for 8 years. I'm not quite where Mike and Jeff are right now.
You could just call us old, Liz.
We're going to edit this part. No. But I've done the traditional screen printing and I did terrible. So with the squeegee and this is why I'm in marketing. But is it an easy or simple learning curve for somebody to use the Stampinator? Would you, such as myself?
No, I
Be
tell
honest.
everyone it's a plug and play unit. If you watch the videos and understand what the Stampinator does and how it works, it'll work. It just it you can in a shop if you have women just the stamp comes in like right I believe right around like 47.5 pounds. You know, one person can put the stamp in by themselves. You lock it in place with your screen clamp downs. That's it, and you line everything up to your palette when it comes up to make
Yeah.
sure everything's centered. It really is super easy. You know, the key is as a printer, I look at it like this. I've always I wanted to I've always wanted to be a professional screen printer. I don't want to be like the mom and pop shop. You can be you can be a mom and pop shop with one press and have a small little business, but make yourself that you want to print the best prints that you can print and
Yeah.
make yourself look at that professional level. I'll share a quick story. I was 24, 25. We had in Maryland, we had our alternative station, excuse me, 99.1. It was WHFS. Well, WHFS was putting on a festival, and I won the bid for the shirts. I had two manual presses, and I'm thinking, how am I going to get this done? I did not want to subcontract the order out. I wanted to do it myself. So I bought my first Gauntlet automatic screen print press. The salesperson sold it to me, said to me, listen, when it comes in, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to help you guys print this job, and I'll walk you through it. Fantastic. The press was supposed to come in a month before the job was due. It showed up like literally 3 days before that week where we had to start printing the shirts. So Friday, we broke the press down off the truck, unskidded it or crated it, put it up, had it ready to go. And it was every bit of 6 colors, like a sim process. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea how to really do the proper color separations. And I was using the wrong mesh. I was using like 110 mesh. So, long story short, we printed about 1,200 tees by Friday. I think I cried a few days, had some tears coming out, right? What am I going to tell this guy? So I called the guy, the promoter, and I said, listen, I got good news and bad news. He's like, what's the good news? I said, the good news is I have 1,200 shirts. The bad news is I'm not going to be able to finish the order to be able to print these shirts for you guys to sell. He said, I'll take the 1,200. And when you drop them off, I'm giving you a check. Don't ever call me again. So that was my mission to
Yeah.
learn how to do the right separations, color separations for printing. And that was from a company that was New Buffalo, which was a guy, Dave Gardner, who was known as the King of Blacks, printing some phenomenal prints on black shirts.
Mm.
And lucky for me, there was a guy, Charlie Ficini, who came out with Spot Process. And that's how I learned from his system on how to do my own color separations without a system. And that's what I teach people now, how to manually do a color separation to get some really amazing prints. So, but it's technology's changing every day. So there's a lot of great programs out there that allow you to do it. So when you create a separation, it's all in your mesh. Use a higher mesh. Use a 230 for your underlay. Don't be the printer that wants to cycle your press around to hit your underbase again.
Mm-hmm.
If you have enough print heads, always add a highlight white. It just saves time in your print production and it makes things easier when you're printing. You know, automatic screen printing is made to cycle once. We don't like to cycle twice. You know, if it takes 10 minutes to print 100 T's and you're cycling twice, it's going to take you 20 minutes to print 100 T's. So, but yeah, I've learned I'm self-taught. We had Google, but we didn't have videos back then in the late 90s. There was no videos out there showing you how to print. You
Mhm.
know, I think Ryan Moore is the guy that started videos on screen print. I remember watching him and, teaching people how to print, but he was teaching manually, and that's where a lot of people start, on the manual side of printing. So if you're a manual screen printer, Stampinator does have the Stampinator M, which is made for your manual press. You can go to our website and click on manual Stampinator M. We have a new version coming out under the Stalls platform of how, or for Stalls that is manufacturing our stamps. They're also manufacturing the Stampinator M. So that'll be coming soon. Hopefully, we'll have that ready to be launched in January.
Oh, that's so exciting. And, I just want to add, as we kind of start concluding this session, that I think we can appreciate someone such as yourself and even Mike just sharing your industry knowledge and not gatekeeping. And it is kind of cool to see the advancements in technology. And, Mike was saying earlier, there's all these different types of decoration methods. Your direct to film, your screen printing, vinyl. And I think there is a place for every decoration method. I'm a little biased. I do appreciate screen printing. I think it is such a timeless technique, and I don't want it to go anywhere. I always defend screen printed methods, transfers, and I think the Stampinator really can be such a solid fit for that specific customer. And again, how can that event that's happening in February, is that on your website if they wanted to connect and attend?
Yeah, so we'll have it. It I believe it's posted. It's $100 per person, so it's super cheap. Um, if you buy a stamp while you're at the show, you get your money back. You get some other kickbacks with it, and I just want to put a stamp in every shop. I want everyone out there to just really have a tool that truly works.
Yeah.
And one thing I'll tell you is, I have a customer in Virginia. He's got 4 M&Rs. He has stamps on them. He was one of my first customers. Thank you, Doug DKG. He's a great guy. And when a stamp goes down on press, he'll call me and say, "Hey, listen, I I have X amount of pieces. We can't get them done because we don't have a stamp." And I'm like, "Well, just go ahead and run the job." He goes, "No, you don't understand. We will not print without using the Stampinator." I love those kind of
Hmm.
stories
Yeah.
because I know how important the piece of equipment is on how it makes your prints so much better. So it's, to me, that's exciting. And going back to how DTF and transfers exploded, I think it's fair to say that when we hit the pandemic, that's when we saw an increase of transfers. And
Hmm.
then all of a sudden, we saw machines coming in from China and Italy and different places, that it helped the screen printer, because we didn't have employees coming back to work. They didn't want to come back to work.
Hmm.
So that was the alternative. We don't need 10 people to do a transfer. And that's when I had that idea of, like, you know what? Inline transfers on your automatic press. This is the time to make this happen. We designed the top cover palette that goes right on top, and one person can sit there and knock out transfers. If you go to our website, we have a video. I believe it was before right before COVID. There, when I developed the inline transfer press for that one year, I think it was like 2019. We had a guy that won, Brandon, who won a Stampinator because he was running 600 transfers by himself. He was putting a shirt on, the shirt would come around, peel the transfer, pull the shirt off, put another one on. The transfers weren't perfect, but it was pretty awesome to watch that being, just the transfers happening at that high rate of speed.
Mm-hmm. So I think this kind of gives us such a better understanding on not only the creator, Jeff creating the Stampinator, but, I can see that your passion does exude in this industry. So before we conclude, Mike, is there anything you want to add or any bit of encouragement for our viewer?
Oh, like Jeff said, it's going to make your prints better, right? What's great about the stamp is there's really no shop upheaval that you have to go through. You don't have to, okay, where am I going to put this thing? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? It's going to fit right in existing equipment. There's really not much training involved in it, and to get set up with it. Just think of those of you out there who've got their first heat press. How long did it take you to figure out how to use that? About 25 minutes, right? You set your time, you set your temperature, you follow your instructions, you're good to go. And it's kind of the same thing here. Just pop that in the press. Going to make your screen prints better, but it's also, if you're not doing heat transfers, or if you're struggling to get things out quickly, maybe you only have a single heat press, or maybe even a little craft press that you got off Amazon because you knew you needed it, right? So now it's going to allow you to grow that side of the business for you. Or if you're currently screen printing and you're currently doing heat transfers, it's just going to allow you to pump more out the door. And, time is money. The more you produce, the quicker you get it out, the more new jobs can come in. So, I mean, for any screen printer, I think it's a no brainer, really, just for all the benefits that it has for your existing screen print business, but everything else it could do with heat transfers.
Yeah,
Thank
and one
you.
thing I want to add to that is, a lot of people think that the stamp is a rock product, and it's not. Right? It's its own product. It works well on rock presses. It works well on workhorse presses. It works well on M&R. It works well on TOS, MHM, Anatol. If you have an automatic screen print press and it holds a screen print frame 23 by 31, and you have 5.5 inches between the print head and the base of your screen, the stamp will fit on your press.
So, those of you that are watching us live or on the replay, you heard it here. The advancements of screen printing is changing. And like Jeff said earlier, it's changing fast. So, to Mike and Jeff, I really am so grateful that you took the time. And thank you for being willing to be on the Heat Press for Profit podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thanks
Yeah,
for
thanks for
having me.
having me.
And so, again, before I pop these two off the stage here, Jeff, Stampinator.com, is that where they get all the good information and how to connect?
Absolutely. Go to Stampinator.com. You can go to contact@Stampinator.com or support@Stampinator.com. If you have any issues or questions, if you're an existing customer, you can always reach out and we'll get back to you within that same day.
Perfect. Mike, do you want anyone to get a hold of you?
Well, hey, I was just going to say the great thing about the Stampinator, and it's backed by the power of Hotronics. So we were manufacturing this for Jeff. It was great to partner with Jeff. We saw the extreme value that this product has. And that's what we do. We love innovation. We thought it was innovative. So now we're manufacturing these. Anything you need there, you can contact us at Hotronics as well.
That's amazing. Well, Mike and Jeff, thank you again. And you two have a happy Thanksgiving.
You too,
You
Liz.
too.
All
Absolutely.
right. Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So, thank you so much, everybody, just for watching live or even watching the replay. I think innovation is very important in this industry. And so, you heard it from Mike and you heard it from Jeff, if you want to make your prints better. So, if you have any questions, even as this is concluded, you can always drop your questions in the chat. And we do have people on the clock that will answer them for you. And thank you so much for being a part of Heat Press for Profit podcast this year. We just have 2 more episodes, 2 more. And I'm very excited because December 4th, it's the first Thursday, Um, we're going to be talking about a subject that might have some controversy. So stay tuned. I will be the host, I will be the guest, and bring your questions. Let's get ready to debate on what is possibly the best decoration method and used for trends. So we're talking trends, but let's just say you heard it from me. I don't think direct to film can cover every possible trend out there. So we're going to have, bring the questions. We're going to have a nice casual conversation. And then our final podcast for 2025, I will have Frank Good and Jenna Sackett. We're going to be talking about, what can we expect in 2026? So everybody, have a great rest of your day. Have a good weekend ahead. And again, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel because Stalls, we do our best to make sure you stay educated, you stay relevant in this industry. So you all have a fantastic day, and I will see you on the next podcast. Thanks, everybody.